I'm Andy with Competitive Cyclist, and this is my shootout of two of our most popular everyday helmets, the KASK Protone Icon and the Giro Aries. I can't believe it, but it's been over 7 years since I reviewed the first generation of the KASK Protone helmet in 2017, and 20 years since my first day at Competitive Cyclist in 2004. Until recently, I was always a Giro guy, and I've ridden and reviewed every one of Giro's flagship helmets since long before the days of the Numo and the Atmos. As a matter of fact, my very first helmet ever was the spandex-covered Giro Pro Light way back in 1985. Two things that just didn't matter back then were comfort and aerodynamics. In those early days of the evolution of bike helmets, you could have one or the other, but not both. What I mean is, you could have a plain, round, well-vented everyday helmet or a teardrop-shaped aero helmet with zero ventilation. Somewhere around 2013, Giro realized they could do both in one helmet and released the groundbreaking but ugly Air Attack series. Fast forward a few years, and that brings us full circle to 2017, and thankfully, a handful of brands managed to create a few more attractive options. I really liked the KASK when I reviewed it. It was a perfect balance of everyday usability and race day aerodynamics, and I wore it a ton. It became my everyday helmet for a while, and I loved it so much that I actually taped it up and repainted it a few months ago. I didn't realize it until I looked very closely, but the Icon is actually an updated version of that original Protone. I thought they were the same, but the front has been tweaked a bit to be more breathable and aerodynamic, and they've also installed the brand new Octalink retention system. When it comes to the Giro Aries, we see a helmet that looks more like a traditional bike helmet, but has some amazing tech. The helmet actually consists of two shells that fit inside each other like a ball and socket, and the outer shell can slide around to reduce injury on impact. This is Giro's revolutionary spherical system that was independently verified by authority Virginia Tech as the best performing helmet they've ever tested. Giro did all of this and also reduce the overall size of the helmet to make it more aero. And that's all fine, but what you really want to hear is how these two helmets, which are two of our best sellers, compare to each other. This is where it gets tricky for me, because from the moment I slipped each one of these on, I had an instant favorite that became my #1 go-to helmet. But before I tell you which one, let's take a more objective look at what my testing yielded. The KASK Protone Icon is a near-perfect execution of the Aero Road helmet concept. Like the first generation, it's really comfortable. The inside is lined with even softer pads than before, and the Octalink system still moves up and down by almost 2 inches. And it has perfectly shaped brackets that hug your occipital bones once you dial in the perfect fit with the multi-click rear knob. It's extremely well done, and you can tell these guys have been doing it for a while. The side straps are also silky and ribbon thin, and the faux leather chin strap is a nice high-end touch. It's a little too firm at first, but over time it breaks in. It's also much easier to keep clean than a strap made from nylon webbing. It was perfectly comfortable on all-day rides and never felt heavy, hot, or cumbersome. One thing I don't like, though, is their choice to eliminate the option to adjust the side straps, which I think is a huge oversight on their part because it means the Protone owner loses the ability to fine-tune the fit. The strap junction also sat a little lower on my face than I prefer, but in spite of that, the Protone Icon passed my vanishing test with flying colors. That means I honestly forgot I was wearing it, which is the hallmark of any good piece of cycling gear. So maybe it's not a big deal, but having the ability for more micro adjusting would make it even better. As much as I like the Protone, it's not my favorite. I prefer the Giro, and I've passed up all my POCs, KASKs, and other Giros to reach for it on every ride. And here's why. And it's not an obvious reason. I have a very long and oval head shape, and because of that, I typically have to get size large helmets that end up looking huge on my narrow head. So for me, the smaller overall profile of the Aries solves that problem, which is one that I've had with every helmet I've ever owned. Coincidentally, it's also narrower on the inside, so it ends up being a better overall fit. This helmet felt like it melted into place when I put it on. And although the advertised weight of the Aries is about 2 ounces more than the Protone, it felt lighter and was definitely cooler with far better ventilation. I also love that Aries uses MIPS technology, and when you combine that with the elliptical system, which is basically that 2 helmets in 1 feature I showed you earlier, I feel like I'm wearing one of the safest helmets ever made, and for a middle-aged father of 2 with a mortgage, that's a nice peace of mind. I do have one small dig against it though, the sunglass holder. None of the glasses I own, and I've got everything, Oakley, Smith, POC, and 100%, none of them hit the rubber holders. So it feels to me like Giro is being a little provincial in setting them up for Giro eyewear only, which is a bummer, but that's fine because I only really use that feature about 2% of the time when I'm riding. But it's annoying on a helmet that costs this much. Look, I think they're both great choices, and I still grab the Protone when I head out the door for a fast group ride. But if you told me I could only own one of them, it'd be the Aries. And now our friend Ian is gonna come up and ask us a few questions about each of these helmets and what I thought.
Thanks for the review, Andy. That was great. You answered some of my questions as I had them. I was writing them down, and you were just answering them down the list. So that's a great review. The one question that I do have for you, well, I actually have 2, but the first one is about sweat. I know that some people get to the end of their ride and they put the helmet on and they press it and the sweat all drips down. And I was just wondering, if one of these helmets may manage sweat better than another.
So I am a profuse sweater, especially my head. So for the entirety of my cycling career, I've worn either a headband, a wrap, or now I wear cycling caps on every ride. Because if I don't, I've got eyes and glasses covered in sweat. So most of the riding I did on these, I did with a cap, so I couldn't really do a lot of testing on how well they worked. I did do a couple of rides without, just to test that. KASK, as you can see, pretty traditional foam, not super absorbent, a lot of sweat. A lot of sweat dripped into my eyes. So had to keep wearing a cap. With this one, Giro's different though. It actually has this dry core thing in here. It's almost like a big sweatband up here that does absorb a lot of sweat. Again, me, profuse sweater, I still had a little bit of drip, but it wasn't the waterfall that I got when I was wearing the KASK. May not be everybody else's experience, but definitely mine that the Giro worked better for sweat absorption on my brow.
The second question I have for you is about this spherical system on the Giro, which is awesome. We actually did we also did a whole video on this helmet, so you should go to our channel and check that out, or the video guy put it down there in the description. One thing I thought about, it's pretty easy to move that. I mean, if you crash it would definitely do its job, but the one question I have about it is when you're riding, if you're on like rough terrain, does it rattle at all?
So here's what's funny. Being a huge Giro fan, I grabbed this, I put it on, I rode it for probably a month without realizing it even had this. So, did it rattle? No. Is it quiet? Yeah. And I have to say that once I figured that out, I sat in my office chair and just kind of looked at it for like 30 minutes, like, man, that's really cool. But I got it instantly, because what happens is, it's kind of the MIPS or the vibration deflection. Like if you crash, what's gonna happen is the pavement's gonna grab this helmet, right? And it's gonna hold onto the top shell while your head rotates inside. Right? And it deflects that impact and lessens the possibility of you having a severe head injury. Don't want that to ever happen, but man, it's a huge peace of mind to see that tech really working, in real life, and something you can actually put your hands on and see and feel.
Yeah.
But yeah, does it rattle? No, because I didn't even know it moved for a moment.
Right. The other question I have for you, and I'll just mention them because I know customers have them, or at least I used to have them at the bike shop, but the first one was about the Protone, and in the past they had a much thicker leather strap here, so this is a cool refinement on there. That's cool that broke in well for you.
I did compare this to the one that I have, and it's about half as thick. Yeah. So it felt pretty good out of the box. I'm trying to go in my Wayback Machine in my head and think, okay, was the other one really stiff at first? And I'm pretty sure it was, but that one broke in well. This one was a lot better right out of the box. Again, not a fan of not being able to adjust, but there's so much adjustability back here in this that it really makes up for it.
Another thing that we have, question we get from customers all the time is about the shape of their head. Yep. I have a pretty oval, long head as well, and the Giro works better for me, but I know that someone that has a round head, the KASK helmets are usually a better fit for them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't again know how much you can see this on camera, but that's oval and that's round. Like KASK is a rounder profile, and again, what ends up happening is because it's round and not long, guys like you and me who have those ovalized heads have to get a size up, and we have a giant helmet on, and then it doesn't fit correctly. It moves around on your head. If you have a crash, you might not be able to utilize the technology that's in there. So for me, it's important to figure out what that head shape is and find that helmet shape that matches your head.
And everybody's different. We have we have laser helmets, we have POC helmets, and those are kind of similar. They have
POC's
different
another
fits.
one that works really good for me.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just something to keep in mind, and a great question for our gearheads. So if you do have questions about these helmets or any other questions, please reach out to them. They can definitely help you find the right one. If you have any questions for Andy or just want to leave a comment on the video, please leave that down in the comments below. Like this video and please subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you out there on the roads.
Awesome. Thanks, Ian.
All right, thanks, Andy.